I want you to understand, the Bible says there arose. This word there arose is the Greek word ginomai, and it means that that night that the disciples went to go out on that boat, on that lake, there was no apparent appearance of any type of storm. In other words, it looked like nothing would happen. And then the Bible says there arose. The word arose is the word ginomai, and it means suddenly out of nowhere came a storm. Are you guys there? Suddenly out of nowhere came a storm. And the Bible says that when the storm came, that Jesus was sleeping in the bows of the boat. I want to read for you what it just says, because you have to catch it. A furious storm came up, and the waves break over that boat, so that it was nearly swamped. But Jesus was sleeping on a cushion, and the disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" So here's the picture. The disciples go out on a boat that night, no apparent storm, and suddenly out of nowhere a storm came up. The word again there arose, the Greek word ginomai, and it means out of nowhere suddenly there's a storm. I don't know if who of you sit here this morning that life seemed perfect and suddenly out of nowhere came a storm. A financial storm, a marriage storm, a sickness storm. But I want you to understand that there's one that is in the boat, that is still the master of the winds and the waves. His name is Jesus Christ. And so as the storm arose, the Bible says this, that Jesus was sleeping in the belly of the boat. Now I want you to hear quickly something here, because you have to catch it with your spirit. Is that when a boat gets swamped by water, where does the water go first? The water goes first to the belly of the boat, right? Yet we see two types of people in this scenario. We see one type of people that they are bucketing water. They are trying to get the water out, because they believe that as soon as they get the water out, the boat will survive and they will survive. Yet then you see a second type of Christian in this picture, and he's the one that's in the sleep, in the boat, in the storm. And I ask myself the question, how is it possible that a wet Jesus stays asleep? Please listen to me. Because the water is already at him. He has to be wet by this stage. There's no question. Yet a wet Jesus stays asleep. How is this possible? How does it stay possible that a wet Jesus stays asleep? And as I looked upon this word, the Lord started to speak to me. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was God. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. Jesus was the Word, correct? Now listen to me. Ephesians chapter number 5, verse number 25 to 26 says this. He washes His bride with the water of His Word. So we know water is a symbolism of the Word. And we know the Word is a symbolism, or the symbolism for the Word. The written word is water, correct? So now here's the picture I want you to get. The word, which is water, gets wet by the word which comes from the nature. Are you okay? Everybody with me? I want to explain it to you. So how is it possible that the word gets wet, yet do not get afraid at all of what's busy happening in the boat? Answer. It has to be that the word that is in him is stronger than the word that is against him. It has to be that the word which he is carrying is stronger than the storm that is against him. It has to be that he's the master of the winds and the waves, and he has the power to break it and to silence it and to stop it. And he's not fazed by the storm, because there's a word inside of him that is not connected or jointed to the storm. Are you with me? In other words, you get two types of people. You get those that bucket out of fear, and then you get those that speak out of faith. The disciples are bucketing, Jesus is speaking. Because the Bible says they wake him up. The word wake up there is the Greek word resurrection. In other words, they shake him, they say, wake up! Don't you care that we are perishing? Funny question to ask for the one that calls himself the resurrection and the life. Don't you care that we are perishing? And Jesus does not speak to the waves. He speaks to the wind. Why does He not speak to the waves? Because the waves were not the problem that night. You see, often we fight the waves, but the waves are not the problem. Your fight is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and wickedness of high places. People are never your problem. Flesh and blood is never your problem. And then the Bible says Jesus speaks to the wind. He rebukes the wind. The word rebuke is the word to bring low, to bring small, to chastise, to scorn, to humiliate. In other words, Jesus is humiliating the wind. Because He understands that what's causing the waves is the wind behind the waves. Because the word waves there means to take a wave and to throw it in the boat, in the boat, in the boat, again and again and again and again. It's a repetitive action. In other words, whatever was behind the waves, try to sink that boat again and again and again and again and again. There's only one that has a nature like this, and his name is the devil. The word devil is the Greek word dia, and it means to penetrate. The word balor means to throw again and again and again and again and again. Why? Satan do not know what you're thinking unless he gave you the thoughts that you are thinking. Satan has no control over your life until you give him the control and you confess his control. You have to negotiate, you have to agree with him and say what he says. Oh, come on, are you there? As you sit here this morning, as you go home, maybe later on this afternoon, you have to know, let's use your house as an example. As you go there, you might have a dog. Do you know your dog can bark, but your dog's speech is not intelligent? You are the only part of God's creation that can speak like He does. That means you and I have creative power. Come on, are you with me? We can energize faith or we can energize fear.